Welcome, and thank you for joining us for today's Broadcom and IBM webinar on securing the storage network. My name is Craig Nelson. I'm the Global Sales Executive here at Broadcom for IBM. And fortunately, I am joined today by my good friend, Silviano Gaona, who's a Field Applications Engineer on the IBM team. Silviano, as always, thanks for joining.
Thank you, Craig. Happy to be here.
As we know, there are constant changes in the cyber threats we're seeing in the marketplace today. There's really been unprecedented challenges in trying to protect our digital assets. It used to be people would hack at us with a single nefarious bad person or groups of people, but now that it's gone autonomous, I hear they're even using AI now to put attacks on our data.
You're right, Craig. AI is not just used for good, but it's also used by hackers to get to your data.
One of IBM's greatest strengths is its end-to-end cyber resilience solutions. Our data is under constant threat, and we know if you don't stop cyber attacks, they can cost you billions. You need a comprehensive blueprint and an end-to-end resilience solution. That's really all about data resilience. But Silviano, I think that the SAN or network can provide something to that, can't they?
Correct, Greg. The data must traverse the network. So data path resilience is just as important.
IBM offers a full range of storage hardware solutions that include a great degree of data resilience, whether it's the flash system, the smallest flash system, all the way up through the DS8000 product line. They're end-to-end performant, they're also end-to-end secure. But you're gonna need to connect those to something. So when it comes time, I would consider the B-type SAN. Whether it's one of our small Gen 6 switches, all the way up through our Gen 7 directors, our extension solutions, or our management platform, they're all designed with security in mind. But while you're thinking about security, we're sure you're also thinking about your wallet. So anytime you're upgrading a flash system, you actually have access to value bundle-based switches. You can get a reduced cost on SAN when you're buying it along with any one of the flash systems you see here. We've even added the new Gen 7 mid-range switch to the program. And Silviano, Gen 7 Fibre Channel provides many security enhancements, doesn't it?
Yes, Craig. Secure boot is one of those. We protect against tampering of the hardware and the boot code. We also harden the FOSS by removing root level access to protect against malware and hijacking attacks. We also enhance certificate support for secure communications, and we have secure licensing, ensuring that licenses are installed are legitimate and not tampered with.
We thought we'd have a little fun and ask ChatGPT, an AI engine, to list the top 10 best practices to avoid in a data breach. The first thing it mentioned in its list was regularly update and patch software. But sometimes that requires refreshing legacy hardware first. Now, it may sound parochial for the storage switch guys to tell you that upgrading your hardware is the right thing to do, but the Wall Street Journal does agree with us. To thwart hackers, companies should focus more on modernizing their networks. Not only you get more performance, but you're going to also get greater security. Now, Silviano, speaking of security, we obviously run on hardware, but that hardware has a software component, Fabric operating system. Maybe you could talk about its vulnerabilities and how what we have differs from a general purpose switch, for example.
Brocade does run Fabric OS, and although Fabric OS is Linux-based, it is a much smaller footprint than most Linux systems. With a smaller footprint, it is a smaller surface area for attacks. So not all CVEs over 500 per year will be relevant to Brocade. Things such as Wi-Fi, which we do not use, or Bluetooth, which we also don't use, those vulnerabilities would not apply to Brocade.
So we've seen that Fibre Channel is natively more secure, but the time is now to upgrade and modernize your storage network. There's quite a bit of old gear out there. Many of it's Gen 4 at 8 gig or Gen 5 at 16 gig, and it's very quickly passing to end of life. Many of the products you see on the left have been deployed by IBM going back as many as 12 plus years. And some of it is at the point where it will no longer even be supported from a hardware perspective. And this can have a big impact on your business. Number one is there will be a performance impact. If you have a newer flash system array, you want to take advantage of the speed and the low latency that it delivers. A new network is going to help you do that. It also poses a security risk. As we talked about, if you no longer have access to new FOSS Fabric OS, guess what? You're not going to be able to get security patches and guard against those CVEs, which Silviano talked about. And lastly, if you're at the end of hardware support, making a call to have an optic replaced or a power supply or a switch replaced can no longer happen. The hardware is no longer supported. It's time to get a new network. So Silviano, it's hard to believe, but Gen 5 is now 12 plus years old and Gen 6 is now 7 plus years old.
That is very old hardware, Craig.
To put it in iPhone years, just as an example, Gen 5 was announced at the same time as the iPhone 3GS. And I don't imagine many of you out there still running an iPhone 3, or if you were, you wouldn't expect to have current iOS running on it. So it's truly time to upgrade. As you see, many of the products have already experienced the last customer ship. We no longer ship them. Some have reached FOSS end of availability, which means we no longer deliver patches or new FOSS versions for them. Many, if not all, are at the end of support, which means they'll no longer be able to make a hardware call to have things fixed. So it's time to refresh those networks. If you're going to refresh that network, well, there's nothing like getting a deal while you're doing it. So you can simplify the refresh, optimize performance, and maximize security by using the Flash System Value Bundle. Many of you might be familiar with the Entry Flash System Bundle, which launched in May of 2023. Due to its success, we've expanded the program. Now it includes not only the Flash System 5000 family, but also the 7000 and 9000 family. We've also included the new SAN 64B7- switch, the Gen 7 mid-range switch, in the value bundle as well. Definitely a better together solution, and now at a better price. Obviously, there are many benefits to installing the storage and the SAN together. The reduced cost, which I talked about, but you also get to modernize your storage network, both the array and the network itself. You get to optimize application performance. You get much easier scalability, both in terabytes as well as in raw network speed, and you can enhance your solution support. In fact, all of the value bundle switches are available for IBM Expert Care. So Silviano, number 2 on ChatGPT's list was enforce strong password policies. Now, that seems rather straightforward, and you wouldn't think Brocade would have much to do with that, but maybe you could talk a little bit about what we can do to affect that.
Brocade has, for many years, had user and password protections within FOSS, enforcing things such as password strength, not reusing passwords, expirations, account lockout profiles, so that if accounts are attacked, we can lock out those accounts. Root account has been removed from FOSS. Maintenance users require code from Brocade support in order to use it, and integration with CyberArk.
So number 3 on ChatGPT's list was multi-factor authentication. Now, Silviano, this isn't the same as a password. It's the way you authenticate, but it's using an external identity provider or an IDP. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how MFA and IDPs play with a Brocade switch.
Passwords are risky, and MFA adds a layer of security. Even if your username and password are compromised, it now requires additional layer of protection where it requires a PIN or some code texted to your mobile device. Federated authentication removes passwords altogether, and now you authenticate with an identity provider. That identity provider would then provide a token between the user and the switch or director.
That makes sense, Silviano. In fact, I think I use multi-factor authentication all the time for my banking apps. I'm glad it's made it to the storage network. Now, another one is limiting user access. And I think you talked a little bit about the root account being removed. Is there anything else you'd mention on that?
We have a role-based access control, which means that certain users only have access to configuring or accessing certain information on the switch or director. We also have disabled or blocked insecure protocols, such as clear text telnet or HTTP. We use safe SSH encryption algorithms. And we have also disabled the root account so that if somebody does get access, they don't have root access that provides them full access of that switch or director.
So number 5 on ChatGPT's list was encrypt sensitive data. Silviano, maybe you could talk to us a little bit about what Brocade does in the way of encryption on the switch.
Things that are encrypted on Brocade products are such things as licenses, SNMP passwords, and using AES 256 encryptions on ISLs so that your data is encrypted in flight.
Number 6 on the list is implement network segmentation. Now, this is something that Fibre Channel does natively. We do separate and isolate our Fibre Channel networks. Maybe you could walk us through a little bit more on that, Silviano.
With Ethernet, we have any-to-any connectivity, meaning that when data is sent, it is broadcast to all the devices on that network. With Fibre Channel, we are natively more secure because the source sends the data specifically to the target, and no other device can see that data.
Now, numbers 7, 8, and 9 on ChatGPT's list I would consider to be kind of customer best practices, whether it's conducting regular security trainings or audits, or it's establishing an incident response. This is something that I think customers need to implement. But I think we can actually affect number 10 from a Brocade perspective. Monitoring, logging, and alerting activity, that's something we do well. Maybe, Silviano, you could talk to us about the monitoring and alerting policy suite, or MAPS, and then also a third-party integration we have with IBM.
MAPS has many monitors, including monitoring things like security, performance monitoring, and marginal components. We also integrate with IBM QRadar for early detection. In this example, if you have continuous failed login attempts on a switch, the switch will, using syslog server, notify QRadar. QRadar will then use SSH or API calls to implement IP filters on the switch. In addition, QRadar will get a message into the QRadar dashboard for further compliance investigation.
So if you look at ChatGPT's top 10, I think we did pretty well, Silviano. I think we hit all 10.
Craig, I would have to completely agree. The partnership between Brocade and IBM provides a cyber resilient solution.
Thank you again, Silviano, for joining me in this conversation. And thanks to all who watched today. And remember, if you have an edge storage infrastructure or your customers talking to you about cyber resilience, don't forget, data path resilience is important too. Don't forget to upgrade that SAN.